Shocking millionaire transformation. After 20 years, this song brought back his smile at work. The office was abuzz with whispers, suspicions floating through the air like dark clouds before a storm. A man, once a dazzling millionaire, had faded into a dim shadow of himself. Wallace Bragg, with his trademark slicked-back hair and dapper suits, had ruled the boardrooms and gala nights. Then, seemingly overnight, he became a mere ghost wandering through the halls. No bright laughter filled the air anymore, just a chilling, unsettling silence surrounded him. What could transform such a powerful figure into a mere memory? It started when colleagues noticed something odd every Friday afternoon. Wallace played a certain song in his office. The melody was haunting, a mixture of nostalgia and sorrow. It was a simple tune, with a catchy beat that hung in the air long after it stopped. Just hearing it gave people chills. "Is he lost in the past?" someone murmured, their eyebrows knitted with concern. Yet those who listened closely could feel a strange energy rising from its simple notes. It pulled at heartstrings, igniting buried emotions that had almost faded into oblivion. As the days turned into weeks, that song became a ritual. It played as late as the sun dipped below the skyline, casting long, eerie shadows in the once bright office. Employees shared sidelong glances. What was drawing him so deep into those notes? There was something captivating, even magnetic, about it. Rumors escalated. Some said the song reminded Wallace of a lost love, others suggested it was a painful reminder of something far darker. Each theory more absurd than the last, yet each whisper painted a vivid picture of longing and mystery. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just when it seemed the tension was at its peak, a breakthrough came. One fateful Friday, as the haunting melody echoed through the office, Wallace stood facing the window, his reflection softening into the dimming light. Colleagues held their breath. Would he finally break the silence? The song's notes shimmered in the air, filling every empty corner of the room. And then, astonishingly, he cracked a smile, just for a flickering moment, but it was enough. Was it happiness? Was it a sign? Everyone felt a tightening in their chests. What did this mean for the man who had lost everything? As the shadows deepened, something shifted. The anticipation of what was to come hung thick in the air. What secret lay behind that smile? And could this song truly bring back the man they once admired? The atmosphere in the office was electric, charged with an unspoken tension as all eyes remained glued to Wallace. His smile, brief as it was, sent ripples throughout the room. Whispers hung suspended like heavy fog. "Did you see that?" someone gasped, their voice barely above a whisper. "He is coming back." But was it real? Or just a mirage? Wallace turned slowly, the remnants of the smile still flickering on his lips. He glanced around, making eye contact with a few startled employees before he returned to the window, the haunting melody still playing softly in the background. His heart raced, and the song took on a life of its own, swirling memories around him like autumn leaves in the wind. Outside, the skyline was bleeding orange and purple as the sun bowed out for the day. In that moment, he felt both exhilarated and terrified. Was he really allowing himself to feel again, or merely haunted by the ghosts of his past? The music carried a weight, a painful reminder of the life he used to lead. That's when Avery, a junior accountant, gathered the courage to step forward. "Mr. Bragg," she called out, her voice trembling slightly, "what does the song mean to you?" He hesitated, his eyes fixed on the horizon. Silence enveloped the room, every ear tuned in, hungry for the answer. He took a deep breath and spoke, his voice low and trembling. It's a cry for help from a time when I was whole." Gasps erupted as his revealing words hung in the air. The crew shared glances, wide-eyed disbelief etched into their faces. What had he lost? Everyone leaned in closer, tension crackling like static electricity. In that moment, Wallace transformed before them. He was no longer just a corporate titan, he was a man, vulnerable and raw. It reminds me of a promise I made, a betrayal I can't forget. The hush seemed to grow heavier. It took everything from me. The weight of his honesty weighed heavy in the air, and every heart in the office felt the pang of his truth. What was it? A brave soul finally dared to ask from the back. It was a simple question, yet it echoed loudly in the hollow space of the office. Wallace turned, his expression shifting. One day, I'll share that story, one that might change everything for me and for you. His eyes searched the crowd as if trying to gauge who was ready for the truth. Suddenly he stepped back, as if recoiling from what he had just revealed. The room thickened with uncertainty, and the haunting melody played on, teasing the edges of an unspeakable past. The lights flickered for a moment, and the air seemed to crackle with anticipation. But today isn't that day, Wallace added, the heaviness of his words sinking like a stone into the atmosphere. A collective sigh filled the office, disappointment mingling with relief. Everyone remained on edge, yearning for the missing pieces of the puzzle. What was that betrayal? And who was the person behind it? A shroud of mystery wrapped tightly around Wallace, deepening the fixation. Another Friday would come, but could the song unveil more than just memories? As Wallace turned off the music and walked out of the office with purpose, the unrelenting questions lingered. What awaited him on the other side of that door? And what would it take to finally break the silence that had gripped his spirit for so long? The door swung shut behind Wallace with a soft click, but the reverberations of his words echoed in the minds of those left in the office. Concerned faces were still etched with confusion, reflecting the heaviness in the air. Avery, her heart pounding, felt the weight of her own thoughts claw at her. What had Wallace seen? What betrayal haunted him? Did he mean what he said? She whispered to no one in particular, her breath hitching in anticipation of an answer that wouldn't come. The crowd parted, voices rising in a heated murmur. A gang of employees remained clustered in a tight circle, trying to decipher the puzzle of their boss. Speculations swirled. Could it have involved someone they knew? Someone in the office? The atmosphere shifted from curiosity to feverish gossip, each theory laden with its own blend of horror and intrigue. Maybe it was something personal, one of them said, an older man with thinning gray hair, his hand brushing over his chin thoughtfully. You know how the higher-ups often hide their real lives. Another, a vibrant intern, grinned despite the tension. Or it was something scandalous. Maybe he stole money. Her laughter sputtered into silence, quickly swallowed by fear of the unknown truth. Meanwhile, Wallace paced down the dimly lit corridor, his heart drumming a frantic rhythm. Outside his office, the voices grew softer behind him, but the disquiet refused to leave him. He had stumbled into a vulnerability he had buried deeply for years. The memory of the promise pinched at his mind, a bittersweet reminder of everything he had lost. He stopped by the floor-to-ceiling window, eyes fixated on the descending sun. Shadows flickered within, memories tugging at the edges of his consciousness. The song's melody whirled around him still, a haunting whisper of hope and despair. Could he truly share this burden? Was he ready to pull back the layers of his past? Wallace? The soft voice of Sarah, his assistant, broke through his reverie. She appeared at his side, weariness etched on her features. Are you okay? He turned to meet her gaze. There was concern there, a glimmer of something more. His unguarded admission had been a crack in the facade. I will be, he replied, though uncertainty draped over his words like a dark cloak. That wasn't like you, she noted softly. Every day, you seem so put together. He felt a knot tighten in his throat, a strange stir of emotion, but just as quickly, he shut it all down. It was just a moment, Sarah. He forced a smile, grateful that she had chosen to navigate the tension delicately. I need to prepare for the investor meeting next week. Okay, she replied, sensing the dismissal. But if you ever want to talk, no, he interrupted, perhaps a touch too harshly. He recoiled slightly, realizing too late. I mean, thank you, but I'm fine. The atmosphere thickened again, and Sarah's concern morphed into a deep retreat. She nodded and took a step back, her concern evident in her expression, but Wallace's mind spun with the fear of facing himself amidst the rising stakes. The day was retreating, the office quieting, but he was abruptly struck by a vivid image, a young woman in a colorful dress, laughing beneath the sunlight. She was the reason for everything that haunted and eluded him, a name that mirrored the fears clawing at his heart. And then, without thinking, he pulled out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen. He hesitated, staring at the names of contacts he hadn't touched in years. "One day," he whispered to no one, the weight of his past shaping the air around him. But with each passing moment, the urge to reach out grew sharper, slicing through his resolve. Would the music guide him back to the person he had promised to protect? Or had the ghost claimed him for good? The light from outside flickered as a storm loomed on the horizon, casting an ominous pall. What lay ahead on this path he had unwittingly opened? And would the melody endure, or break him even further? Wallace stared at his phone, the screen glowing in the dim light. He felt like an actor frozen off stage, ready to slip back into a script that had long gathered dust. The memories of laughter, warmth, and the love he once had weighed heavily upon his fingers. He hesitated, caught in the crossfire of regret and longing. Suddenly, the office lights flickered before plunging him into darkness. His heart raced. Power outages in this part of the city were rare. An unsettling whisper of instinct urged him to flee, but he remained planted, frozen, as if waiting for the inevitable bolt of recognition or dread. Just then, the emergency lights flickered on, casting an eerie glow. It illuminated the corridor, softening shadows but brewing more questions. Outside, thunder rumbled like a beast awakening. It deepened Wallace's sense of foreboding. "Wallace!" The voice was frantic, broken by the sudden wails of the wind. He turned to see Sarah rush toward him, clearly shaken. "We have to get everyone out of here. The fire alarms are going off." "What?" Panic clutched him tightly as he glanced over his shoulder, towards the distant sound of alarms echoing through the building. Every heartbeat felt like an urgent drum, echoing his fear. "Now!" she shouted, urgency sharpening her words. He didn't need to be told twice. The moment they reached the exit of his office, they joined the crowd of employees overflowing into the corridor. Confusion hung in the air like thick fog. People stumbled against one another, panic-stricken faces searching for familiarity, for reassurance. "Is it really a fire?" someone shouted, eyes wide in alarm. "I didn't smell smoke." Wallace gripped Sarah's arm tightly, leading her forward. "We can't linger here. If there's something real, we need to get out." They pushed through the door, and the employee throng poured out onto the streets, the storm raging above. Rain fell like spears, driving into the pavement and bouncing up in sheets. The murmurs shifted to yells, voices blending into a chaotic symphony of fear. "Is everyone okay out here?" someone cried as they gathered in a parking lot, thankfully unharmed. Wallace's eyes scanned the crowd, their expressions etched with clouded confusion. But then, as he turned to Sarah, her gaze darkened, still locked on the building. "I don't like this," she murmured, concern flooding her voice. "What if it's not just a fire?" Just then, a bright flash illuminated the sky, followed by a deafening crack of thunder that shook the parking lot. Everyone jumped, sensing the shift in energy. It wasn't just the storm, it felt heavier, charged. "Look!" a voice yelled from the edge of the crowd. Everyone turned to see a strange figure emerging from the shadows, tall, cloaked in darkness, eyes glinting with an unsettling light. Every heartbeat felt like an eternity, collectively holding their breath in a shared terror. Was this person part of the chaos, or something else, something much worse? "Who are you?" Wallace called, his own voice trembling slightly. But the figure remained silent, an unyielding shadow amid the storm. With a serious heaviness, a single word escaped the stranger's lips. "Wallace." The name sliced through the panic, resonating with a familiarity that chilled him to the bone. Something primal took root in his chest, a sense of recognition. "Do I know you?" Wallace gasped, dread rolling through him like waves crashing into shore. "More than you think." As the storm raged on, Wallace felt the world around him tilting, time stretching indefinitely, and an ancient fear beginning to surface, a fear that had long been buried beneath his facade. And now, it was clawing its way back. Would the shadows that haunted him finally reveal their secrets, or would oblivion swallow him whole? The figure took a step closer, the crowd parting in instinctual fear. Wallace's breath quickened. What truth lay beneath that single word? What were the shadows demanding of him? The figure's gaze bored into him, hungry, electric. Wallace felt the weight of eyes watching from the crowd, their murmurs rising and falling like the storm overhead. His mind raced, images flashed of a life he'd tried to forget, of choices that led him to this very moment. He wanted to run, but his feet felt anchored to the ground. "Why are you here?" He finally managed to choke out, the words scraping past the throat knotted with dread. "Because it's time," the shadow replied, voice gravelly and deep, swirling in the air like fog. "Time to face what you've buried." The crowd recoiled as the storm howled, the wind swirling and biting. Fear thrummed in the atmosphere. Somewhere, a child cried, the sound cut clean through the tension, sending the adults into a frenzy of glances, but all Wallace could think of was the presence before him. "Face what?" Wallace pressed, clenching his fists. "Who are you?" "You'll know soon enough." The figure gestured, and the ground beneath them trembled. Shouts erupted from behind Wallace as shadows began curling from the alleyways, dark tendrils writhing and slinking toward the crowd, drawn to the inexplicable presence like moths to flame. Panic ignited. People scrambled back, fear booming in their voices as they surged toward the parking lot exit. "What is happening?" someone screamed, but their words drowned in the uproar. "Stay together," Sarah shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. She grabbed Wallace's arm again, her grip fierce, demanding, "We need to go." But Wallace couldn't move, paralyzed by confusion and an inexplicable pull towards the stranger. Something deep inside him, a long dormant part of his soul, compelled him to stay, like a moth circling a flickering bulb. "It's all part of the game, Wallace," the figure murmured, stepping closer. "You've always known that." "Game?" He wanted to laugh at the absurdity of it. But the warmth of recognition seeped through the dread, wrapping around his heart and squeezing. Memories of laughter and shadows, echoes of past mistakes pressed against him like a falling tide. "Game or not," he said hoarsely, finally tearing his gaze away from the figure to survey the chaos around him, "these people don't deserve this. None of us do." "They'll all have to choose too," the figure whispered, as if everything was already written. "Will you protect them, or will you run?" Wallace blinked, the choice seemingly monumental yet familiar. He felt his pulse quickening, his breath shallow. He opened his mouth to argue, but before he could, another flash of lightning clawed through the sky, cracking the air. An ominous roar of thunder followed, and in that heartbeat, the world tilted again, a distortion, a flicker of time unraveling, and there it was, a vision cut through the chaos, shards of bright light cutting through the darkness, laughter, warmth, a hand reaching out for him. He gasped, the images flooding back like a rush of memory, drowning him. "Wallace!" Sarah's voice sliced through his reverie, bringing focus back to her fear-stricken face. But even she seemed to be slipping away, her form vibrating in and out of existence against the rolling storm. The figure stepped forward, looming larger, the streetlights around them flickering, and then plunging into total darkness. He felt the heat rising from the figure's body, the electric tension sparking his fear, a storm of old wounds crashing and mingling with newfound courage. He knew he had a choice. He could flee or confront this shadow that whispered secrets, that beckoned him back to a place he swore he'd never return to. "Let me in," the shadow said, voice tightening around him. "Or lose everything." With a deep breath, Wallace took a step closer to the figure, feeling every gaze pinning him down. What was he about to discover? And in that moment of choice, another bolt of lightning illuminated the chaos around them, revealing a shadow that bore a striking resemblance to someone he once knew. "Not again," he whispered, frozen in collective shock and realization. But was it too late to turn back? The world spun. Wallace felt as if he were trapped in a nightmare, his pulse echoing loud in his ears like the distant thunder resonating in the sky above. That shadow, that oh-so-familiar face, brought memories crashing back like a tidal wave. "Mom?" The name slipped from his lips almost as a prayer, but the figure only smirked, narrowing its piercing gaze. "Mom?" Sarah asked, her voice strained. "Wallace, what are you seeing?" "No, no! She can't be here." The words tasted bitter, and he shook his head in disbelief. Shadows around him writhed and surged, swirling like a vortex of despair. People screamed, their voices phasing in and out of high-pitched terror. "Stay with me, Wallace." Sarah tugged at his arm, her grip anchoring him in the chaos. But the longer he stared into the figure's eyes, the more he felt the pull toward the past. So much pain, so much regret, a tether pulling him to the very depths of his own history. "She died," he spat, rage boiling beneath his fear. "She can't be here." "Did she?" The figure laughed, a sound that clawed at his sanity, echoing with malice. "Or perhaps she chose to abandon you? Just like you've abandoned your truth?" A ripple of uncertainty sent chills racing down his spine. Doubt clawed at his mind. Had he really buried memories of her willingly? Sarah's face twisted in concern, and the crowd behind him swelled forward, fear written on their features. They were trapped in a storm, both outside and within. "Wallace, focus! We need to get out of here." "Get out?" The figure scoffed. "Where would you run to? You think you can escape your past? It's here, hovering above you, waiting." With that, the shadows sighed, curling inward until they coalesced into images, moments from his life he'd buried deeper than he'd imagined. The laughter of friends, a darkened room filled with smoke, and then her soft smile fading into despair. "No!" Wallace shouted, forcing himself to break free of the memories. "This isn't real. You're just a trick." "Tricks can be real too." The figure leaned closer, a malevolent glimmer lighting up its eyes. "And remember what I said? The game is not just yours. They'll have to choose. Will you let them suffer because you can't face the truth?" The ground trembled again, sending tremors through his legs. The crowd was thrashing in fear, parents gathering their children, faces washed with panic. Children cried, their innocence shattered before the dreadful unknown. "Wallace!" Sarah screamed as the shadows surged towards her. His heartbeat thundered in his chest. He thought of her, of Sarah, fighting against the waves of chaos crashing on him. "No!" He turned back to the figure. "You don't control me." The shadow's laugh pierced through, sent chills racing through him. "But you let me." Choosing fear over truth, just like before. "Enough!" he roared, gathering every ounce of strength. "If I have to face this, if I'm choosing a fight, I'll do it for them." Sarah's eyes widened, hope flickering like a candle caught in a draft. It resonated with the crowd, a thread connecting them to one another. Together, they were more than mere spectators. They were alive, gathered in shared terror. The figure's smile twisted, its form shifting slightly as if Wallace's declaration rattled its foundation. Bravery and foolishness tread the same path. In another flash of lightning, Wallace stepped forward, shadows straining against him. He felt fingers of darkness skimming his skin as he confronted the figure head-on. "Bring it!" he shouted, anger igniting within. "If this is a game, then let us play." But as the air thickened with electricity, something unexpected shifted behind him, a faint whisper, a cry reaching out not for him, but for his lost memories, begging to be uncovered. What was lurking in the depths of those shadows? Wallace squared his shoulders, ready for whatever lay ahead. But one thought still hovered above all the noise: was he prepared for the truth that awaited him? The shadows roared like a tempest, swirling around Wallace with relentless fury. He felt the grip of darkness tightening, an icy clench squeezing the breath from his lungs. "Just face it. You can't hide." The figure's voice coiled around him, an echo of every fear he ever harbored. Sarah's presence ignited something deep within him. He couldn't let this darkness consume her, too. "Get back!" he shouted, a surge of adrenaline pushing him forward. He could feel her pulse behind him, a lifeline amidst the chaos, and he had to protect it. The figure laughed again, a sound that reverberated through the storm. You think you're the savior? All of this chaos is because of you. It waved a hand, and the shadows morphed, twisting into scenes of Wallace's life, him alone in a darkened room, choosing loneliness over connection, silence over honesty. You fail to realize the game only deepens when you attempt to escape. Memories danced mockingly before his eyes. He felt the weight of lost days and untold truths, the lies he decrafted in silence. The faces of friends who drifted away, fading like photographs left in the sun. Panic gripped him, twisting deeper than mere fear. No more! He yelled, but the shadows only tightened their hold. Your truth is a toxic web, Wallace. It spreads and infects. The figure taunted, its form shifting, morphing into a grotesque amalgamation of everything he despised about himself. Wallace's heart raced. You don't know anything about me. Rage ignited a fire within, forcing him to confront his past. I'm here. I made mistakes, but I still have a choice. Suddenly, a flicker danced in the dark, a glimmer of hope. You're right, Sarah's voice broke through, steady and strong. None of us are perfect, but you can choose what happens next. We can face this together. The fragile connection between them surged, igniting a light in the darkness. The shadows jerked back, as if repelled by their unity. Wallace turned, meeting her gaze. Determination radiated from her eyes. In that moment, he understood. It was not just about him. It was about those around him and the potential to rise above the past. Together, he echoed, fists clenching. Together, we fight. The figure's grin faltered, and the shadows hesitated. Wallace felt the surge of energy flow through him and into Sarah, empowering her resolve. The spectre recoiled, the power of their bond shimmering bright against its malevolence. Together! The crowd echoed, inspired by this momentum. The shadows began to dissipate, swirling into the unseen corners of the void. The air cooled, a cleansing breeze sweeping through. Wallace locked eyes with Sarah, who smiled through the chaos. Something had shifted, a turning point that promised redemption. But in that moment of triumph, a loud crash reverberated through the air. A new darkness stirred from the edges, an unsettling presence coiling its way back toward them. With it came whispers of betrayal, old friends, hidden truths, and promises broken. Do you think this is over? The figure screeched, rising from the depths once more monstrous than before. I'll return. You can't escape your own soul. Wallace's heart dropped, dread pooling in the pit of his stomach. No, this couldn't be how it ended. They had fought too hard, and he wouldn't let the shadows win again. Sarah, before he could finish his thought, the figure lunged. The crowd gasped, the energy shifting like a sudden wind. What were the true sacrifices he might have to make? Would they be enough to banish this darkness once and for all? The battle was just beginning, and the truth loomed over him, dark and threatening, begging to be confronted. Could he withstand the weight of what was to come? Wallace barely had time to react. The figure lunged forward, shadows leaking from its form, tendrils snapping like whips in the air. Heart pounding like a drum in his chest, he dove to the side, just as it lashed out. He heard the whoosh of hate-filled air rush past, chilling him to the bone. Sarah! Move! He shouted, feeling the urgency surge through him. In that instant, shadows darkened the crowd, swallowing hope and plunging them into silence. Fear spread, reflected in the wide eyes of those around them. Wallace could feel the raw terror radiating off everyone. People instinctively took a step back, whispers of panic rippling like water disturbed by a rock. Don't let it take you! Sarah yelled, her voice fierce and unyielding. She pushed through the throng, determination etched on her face. Wallace could see her spirit flickering like a candle, fighting against the overwhelming darkness. It fueled his own courage. Together! He shouted again, this time with more clarity and power. He stretched out his hand towards her, willing their connection to bond them stronger than the shadows could threaten. But then, the figure cackled, a sound full of malice and darkness. You think just your will can save you? How naive! It surged forward again, an arousing plume of black mist. The air grew thick, suffocating, as doomsday approached. Wallace stumbled back, almost losing his footing. But behind him, he heard murmurs. "Look!" someone exclaimed, pointing towards the edges of the roiling darkness spilling over the crowd. There, flickers of light, dancing like fireflies, began to emerge from the assembled faces. Each one sparked hope, fueling a surge of warmth amidst the gloom. It was as if their collective bravery lit a flickering path through the murk. The shadows reacted violently, twisting and writhing around them, but they struggled against the light. "Keep it going," Sarah urged, captivated by the glowing connection. She began to chant, raising her arms like a beacon, urging the crowd to join her. "We are stronger! Together!" With newfound conviction, Wallace echoed her words, the strength of unity pounding through his veins. "Together! We are not afraid!" The energy surged through the crowd, louder and bolder, as each soul contributed their own flicker of light. The figure snarled, frustration etching its grotesque features. "You think this light can save you? You are still haunted by your past." Memories of mistakes whipped through Wallace's mind like a storm. Faces of lost friends flashed in quick succession. Each one felt like a dagger twisting deeper. But amidst them all, he caught sight of Sarah's determined smile, a warm reminder of what he had to fight for. "No!" he roared back, drawing strength from all the pain. "I am done running. We all have our shadows, but we will face them." Something shifted. The light glimmering from the crowd hardened into a palpable force, encircling him and Sarah like a protective barrier. The dark figure recoiled, its twisted form revealing glimpses of a past Wallace had nearly buried, the weight of secrets spilling forth. As the shadows crept closer again, Wallace took a step forward, fists clenched. "This ends now. We'll face this truth together." But then, just as triumph seemed within reach, the shadows lunged once more with renewed ferocity. The ground trembled underneath their feet, chaos erupting like a volcano. No longer just a battle of shadows, it had become a battle of wills. Wallace gasped as the darkness closed in. It was now or never. Could they truly unite their lights to banish this darkness? As the chaos surged around him, a chilling whisper caressed his ear. "You cannot escape who you are." His resolve faltered for the briefest moment as doubt crept in. What awaited him on the other side of truth? Would he have what it took to face the final confrontation? The energy pulsed through the crowd, a living thing, battling against the onslaught of darkness. But as Wallace stood rooted to the spot, the whisper echoed in his mind, unraveling his confidence thread by thread. He faced the figure, panting heavily, and the intensity burned bright in his chest. Could he stand firm? "Wallace!" Sarah's voice cracked through the haze, tightening the knot of fear tightening in his throat. She pulled him back from the brink, her eyes blazing with fierce determination. "Don't let it get to you. Remember what we're fighting for." The shadows sneered, each tendril snapping at their heels. "You cling to hope like a child. You cannot change your essence." Wallace felt the weight of the past settle on him, a suffocating cloak of regret. He closed his eyes, forcing himself to breathe through the pain. Memories flooded back, decisions made in haste, faces blurred by time, moments lost to darkness. Each recollection struck him like lightning, and for a split second, he teetered on the edge of despair. Would he let the weight pull him under? No! He jerked his head up with a newfound resolve, grasping the energy swirling around him. "You don't define me. We define ourselves." The shadows shrieked, an unsettling symphony of rage and agony. The crowd responded, their lights flickering brighter in response to Wallace's surge of defiance. Each spark cut into the darkness, igniting courage among the people as hope tangled with fortitude. The figure recoiled, snarling, and Wallace could almost feel the shadows recoil, as if they feared the rising tide of light. "Keep pushing!" Sarah shouted, rallying the crowd with her voice, stoking the flame. "This is our moment. We are not alone. Together, we can shatter the darkness." Wallace stepped forward, engaging every ounce of strength. "Together," he echoed, heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of the crowd. "Together, We are stronger than the shadows. Together, we illuminate the truth. The power vibrated through the air, a force palpable and fierce. Wallace felt it surge within him, uniting with the others, forcing every fragment of doubt into the shadows behind him. Every unanswered question, every painful memory, each lingered regret transformed into a burst of radiant light. Face the truth, he thundered, voice blending harmoniously with the chant of the crowd. We will not waver. We will not fade. In an explosive wave, light erupted from their collective strength, sweeping towards the figure. It howled in fury, tendrils snapping wildly as the brightness swallowed it whole, struggling against the overwhelming force. But just as victory appeared to be within grasp, the shadows twisted, morphing into a grotesque vortex that spiraled toward Wallace. It threatened to envelop him in despair again. You're still afraid you can't escape your past? The dark figure hissed hoarsely. Wallace's heart raced as he felt a flicker of that fear rise. That familiar sensation, the fear of loss, the dread of facing his flaws. But as he looked back at Sarah, her strength vibrant and unwavering, he knew he wasn't in this alone. I won't let you take my light, he shouted back defiantly, reaching for the warmth stemming from everyone around. He felt the power of countless souls interwoven with his. The shadows shrieked, buckling under the dauntless assault of their resolve. But in that climactic moment where light battled lingering darkness, Wallace glimpsed something that sent ice racing through his veins, glimpses of his own darkness reflected in the shadows. Was it true? Could he ever escape? A terrifying revelation ran through him as he braced for what was to come. The heady mix of hope and fear overwhelmed him. What would it cost to face what lay within? All around, chaos rampaged as the final confrontation loomed. Wallace took a deep breath, gathering every piece of inner strength as the shadows loomed larger. Not just for himself, he was fighting for everyone now. Could he look into the abyss and finally confront the truth? Would the crowd's light be enough? As silence enveloped them all, dread hung thick in the air. The moment was upon them, a crack in reality. Something shifted, a turning tide. Let us finish this, he cried, ready to plunge into the depths of his own darkness to confront what he feared the most. But just before he could step forward, the abyss shifted, and he saw it, the dark figure spinning within, revealing a hidden truth he never expected. Wallace braced himself, heart racing, as shadows folded in and around him. The chaotic tempest of darkness twisted into a vortex, revealing the familiar shape of the woman who had haunted his every waking moment. Mom? He gasped, the name hanging heavy like a dirge. She stepped forward, her eyes dark pools, filled with hurt and longing. Wallace. It's time, she whispered, the words brushing against his soul, a chilling reminder of everything he had lost. No, he shook his head fiercely, backing away. You're not real. You can't be here. Yet, as the winds howled in resonant melancholy, he felt the weight of reality invading his defenses. It's all been a game, hasn't it? She continued, each word cutting deeper like a sharp knife. All these years spent running, hiding from the truth. She gestured toward the shadows writhing around them, transforming them into images of his past laughter amidst comfort, but also guilt and despair. The crowd behind him held their breath, watching, trembling as the storm of memories threatened to spill over. Each face flashed by like a smattering of fleeting moments' joy, love, and ultimately, the heartache he had created. You abandoned me, her voice echoed inside him, ethereal yet piercing. No! The refusal clawed at his throat. I did what I had to do. Wallace felt exposed, the shame of choices made tumbling through him like an avalanche. Regret stung bitterly, a fire igniting within. He could feel the crowd's energy shifting, an electric tension crackling as if poised to implode. Choices, she responded, lips curling into a shadow of a smile. You see, those same choices are what you still evade. Suddenly, a renewed force surged within him, igniting his resolve. I've evaded nothing, he shouted, casting a fierce glance at her, grounding himself in both fear and determination. I've faced my demons. He turned back to the crowd, their anxious faces a comforting reminder of bonds forged in fear and friendship. But it seems that darkness has convinced me to forget the light. The vortex of shadows coiled restlessly, absorbing every ounce of his anxiety. You can't hide from me, Wallace, the figure taunted, slinking closer. As long as you bear resentment, it will always lurk. No more! He screamed, ripping through hesitation. This ends today. With every ounce of courage, he stepped forward, ready to face what lay beneath the surface. I am not defined by my fears, by mistakes, or by you. As he spoke, light flared to life around him, the shimmering embers of courage blossoming from those who stood shoulder to shoulder, returning to him the very strength he feared he'd never have. Together! He bellowed, his voice echoing against the cacophony. The crowd joined him, hands rising, a tide of unity, each heartbeat pounding louder than the shadow's ferocity. Together! Their shouts crescendoed, a riot of power that reverberated deep within the storm. In that moment of unyielding faith and open hearts, Wallace felt layers stripping away, the depths of his fears unfolding with every echo. Let go! He commanded both them and himself. Let go of the pain, the betrayal. Let in the light. They surged forward, a brilliant wave of glowing resolve, crashing into the figure, consuming the darkness with brilliance. The shadows writhed, desperation clawing back at them, but they stood firm, fingers entwined in a salute to courage and truth. No! The dark figure shrieked as the light fused around it, tendrils of hope suffocating its shadows. Face the truth! Wallace roared, eyes blazing with passion. We are more than our pasts. In one final, blinding flash, the shadows burst, imploding into a cascade of light, and Wallace took a breath, feeling weight lift. The wind settled, silence dripping from the heights of the moment. Fractured memories drifting like petals in the breeze, a new dawn illuminated the space where darkness once reigned. Thank you, his mother's voice, faint yet steady, echoed within him before she began to fade. Remember me as I was, and not as your burden. He watched as pieces of the past floated away, finally released. Tears fell like rain, each drop carrying sorrow but also relief. The crowd whispered, their eyes wide with awe and understanding. Wallace turned towards them, relief flooding his chest. I'm sorry, he said, voice thick but steady. For everything I hid, everything I ran from. They nodded, empathy radiating among them. They understood they were all fighting their shadows. The air shifted as he stepped into the soft light, feeling weightless, alive, embraced by an overwhelming sense of connectedness. I want to run again. With those words, the last remnants of shadows dissolved. Acceptance washed over him, binding him to every soul that had endured through the chaos. He felt smiles bloom around him, hearts lifting. As laughter broke the tension, the storm clouds slowly peeled away, revealing a sun-drenched horizon. A quiet hope unfurled, filled with promise and resilience. Together he breathed, realization settling in his bones like steel. He had faced the shadows and emerged not just a man, but a beacon of light for others. And as they walked forward, side by side, a new dawn awaited, a fresh canvas painted with courage, connection, and the unyielding pursuit of truth. Don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe now and stay tuned for the next exclusive stories that could change everything. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm and keep the community thriving. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What did you think about Wallace's journey? And share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this epic conclusion. This is the moment to show your support and be part of what is coming next.